I wash my soul in the ocean, in the tears of God, I let it go.
Hello, my Astro family. This is Lada from astrolada.com with your weekly astrology update, and we're going to focus on the full moon in Aquarius, which is square Uranus. It smells like revolution, it smells like rebellion, it smells like lightnings from the sky and shocking news. And this influence has started. A full moon, you feel it almost like a week before that. In the next 2 weeks, the full moon is on the 3rd of August, but it starts already from the end of July for you to feel it collectively on a personal level, and it will be active till the new moon on the 18th of August. So this is almost 3 weeks influence. And why is it it's kind of, you probably already starting to feel the nervous energy around, because the full moon is, here's the moon, it's in Aquarius, is opposite the sun, it means it's full moon, and it's going to have exact square with Uranus with no help from any other planets. And Uranus has very similar vibration to Aquarius. And Aquarius is, first of all, let's talk collectively. It is the people. Aquarius rules society collectively, us all. And Leo, the opposite, is those in power, the elites, you can call them the celebrities, the kings and queens. So we're already having a tension because the sun and moon are opposing each other. They're kind of highlighting problems that exist between the inequality between normal people and people at high positions. But it is a dual world, it's part of it. But it gets even more intensified because of the hard aspect, exact square. You see 90 degrees from Uranus here to both Leo and to both the sun and the moon. And Uranus is in the sign Taurus, which rules finances, money, financial situation, and people are starting to rebel. Aquarius is to rebel, to rise, to have your voice heard, to want to have rights. Aquarius rules civil rights. And people civilly are starting to rise, to get discontent, and especially this tension between those in powers in Leo, those that are privileged in Leo, and those that are the normal Joe, the normal hoi polloi like you and me, Aquarius, that go around their day. They just want to be part of society and living their life. The tension is escalated because of inequality, because of financial inequality, especially because of what's happening financially. And it's not just in one country, it's all over the world, that we're being affected like that. So you're starting to see, and these will continue. There will be further few years that these will repeat, full moons in Aquarius, square Uranus, for the next few years as well. But that's one of the first ones of those. So it's starting to build, you're feeling it. And Uranus is, of course, shocking news, something shocking, unexpected information that comes, that shocks us collectively on some level, that directly influence us as members of society, as our role in society, and directly influences those in power, Leo, the sun. And things are coming to the surface, that cannot be held down, Saturn is very strong in Capricorn still with Jupiter. So there is control. They're trying to control the narrative. They're trying to control the old situation as it's always been, because Saturn wants to keep the status quo as it's always been. But Aquarius and Uranus, where the full moon is Aquarius, and Uranus square is exactly the opposite. It's about breaking the old rules. It's about divulging, and because it's a hard aspect, uncomfortable truths. So watch out, it's happening, it's going to continue to happen. And not only on a collective level, it's going to be on a personal level. You're going to rebel in some area of your life, especially if it falls on this axis, whatever Aquarius falls in your horoscope. We'll speak about the 12 signs. You're going to rebel there. You might do something quite unexpected, or it might come to you from outside. Suddenly, you have certain plans and your whole schedule gets destroyed, disturbed, or you will be pushed out of your comfort zone. And you might discover some uncomfortable truths that push you out of your comfort zone, that push you into culmination, to end something, to cut the cords with something. Uranus is this unique planet that when it gets involved with the two lights, the sun and the moon, you can do what is called like cord cutting. And especially if it affects your relationship houses, you know, people that are fire signs, like their rising is Aries, Sagittarius, or Leo, their sun or moon or ascendant is in one of the three fire signs. This full moon definitely affects their relationship houses. So they can, for example, disconnect from toxic people suddenly. With They get upset because it's a square. You'll get upset about something, and you will say enough is enough, and you're no longer in my life, or this group of people, or I switch off my Facebook, or I delete my account, social media, because you know those houses are social. And Aquarius naturally rules social media. You see, Aquarius is the internet. It rules interconnected networks. So does Uranus. So this is the internet. So all the focus is, all the action is happening there. All the social activity is happening there. And that's where, and I think there'll be like a big push to kind of break the rules that are being imposed there on social media. But most of the tension will be happening around social media and people, you know, or communicating with others, because Aquarius is friends, society, what others think, what you think, how you communicate and exchange ideas, the marketplace where you exchange ideas and goods and conversations. So this is where all the emotional tension happens, and where people are willing, as they say, to cut the cord, to call on bullshit, because Uranus is all about the truth, and where they're willing, the people want their voice to be heard, and where they're willing also to throw possibly the baby out with the water, because of, you know, if sometimes Uranus full moon like this one can make us act very irrationally, very fast, without consideration. So we have to be careful. So yes, it can bring out some amazing insights, sudden illuminations, sudden like, wow, shocking information that you're like, really? But at the same time, especially on a personal level, you can just act so fast that you burn bridges behind you. So, interesting, fun times. You can also notice your nervous system starting to become very uh, irritable, because Uranus rules the nervous system, and so does Aquarius. So collectively, there's just tension. There's almost like sparks flying and in the air. You even on a physical level, it can indicate storms with flashes. What's that called? With thunderstorms. You know, because Uranus rules the electricity in the air, and the electricity collectively around the whole world is building up. Everyone is feeling electrified. This can make some people feel super alive, super excited, you know. But for some other people, especially if it affects very sensitive points in your horoscope in difficult ways, sorry about that, I'll switch my Skype, this can indicate that it's a bit too much for their nervous systems. Some even might get close to a nervous breakdown, overload of information, overload with a hectic monkey mind, with the electricity of the collective. And I would highly advise you to discharge this electricity in a few different ways to calm down the nervous system, first by taking magnesium supplements, because magnesium is known, strong Uranus energy is known to deplete magnesium. Magnesium is the cooling, to calm you down, to relax the muscles, to relax your heartbeat. Because there is like this, you know, Uranus, Aquarius, where the moon is rules the nervous system and the circulatory system, while where the sun is in Leo rules the heart. So they can be, you can start feeling like a rhythmic activity of the heart. It's like palpitations, some of you, or coldness of the heart, or cold one moment of the hands and extremities. This is circulation or Aquarius. So just generally nervous tension, a lot of Vata energy. Vata is the wind energy, and the mental energy. So magnesium is one way to calm down. It really helps, because I'm naturally high strung. You can see it. I'm like always. And another thing that helps, of course, foods that are high in magnesium, like leafy greens. Eat your fruits and vegetables. They always calm down. Another thing is grounding, because Uranian energy, Aquarius energy, is very ungrounded. You might feel a bit like a space cadet for the next few days or weeks. bit disconnected, even like, oh, like in your head. And you need to ground yourself. The easiest way to ground yourself is to walk barefoot outside, or just to sit next to a tree and to lean with your back next to a tree. You can put your hands there if you want, minimum of 15 minutes, because that's one breath of a tree. Symbolically is about 15 minutes to connect with that. There are other ways, breathe work, whatever you can, ground yourself, because guys, it's getting so electric. And yeah, and if you're in places where there are thunderstorms and where there are flashes, you know, just protect yourself. But who will feel this? You know, some people might just feel electrifying excitement in the air, or some disruption of their daily routines. It can be just to that little level around the 3rd of August, but some others, they can have their life turn around 180 degrees. And who will feel that? Let me tell you. I want to share my screen with you. You can check, you can go to my, oops, sorry. Oh, sorry. My personal transit calendar, which is for free. If you can go here, log in or register. It's from, I'll put a link below this video, and enter your personal details, place of birth, time of birth, preferably if you know it, you know, to the minute. And then you get for free for 7 days all your transits ahead. You can unlock for indefinite time, for years ahead if you want. It's super cheap. You won't find such a tool anywhere else online. 40,000 people are using it. I'm super proud of it. And who's going to feel this? Anyone who around those days, I'll start from the 31st of July to around the 6th of August. And if you don't see your transit up till the 6th and 7th of August, check in tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Every day it opens just about 6-7 days. So every day when you come in, it will open a bit more days. So if you're watching this a bit too early and you're not seeing all your transits, check again. But if from around the 31st to around the 6th of August, you have any sun transit, if you see any yellow, the sun transits are the yellow ones. Here is the legend here. Or any Uranus transit happening to their planets. So sun, so the yellow or the dark blue one. You see even the planets are indicated here, the first planet always. So for example, this person will have exactly around the day of the new moon, around the 3rd, sun trine Mercury. The trine and the sextiles are easy. This means that this eclipse, this full moon will give you an easy, even though it's kind of disruptive for kind of stressful aspects, it's making to your planet, to certain area in your horoscope, good aspects. Like for this person, it's Mercury. It's going to electrify their mind. Of course, you can read what it means specifically for you. But everything that I tell you about this transit will have an easier, this full moon will have an easier effect. It can basically, if you have sextiles or trines that are happening to your horoscope, you're just going to feel some sudden inspiration, some bright ideas, you can do something very unusual, something unexpected happens, but you turn it around in a good way, even if it disturbs your daily routines, even if it, you know, takes you out of your usual path, you can use it in a way that you make lemonade out of it. Lemonade out of lemons. But if the sun or Uranus are making hard aspects, which is the square, I don't think I have someone to demonstrate you here. I'm checking. I have mine open for a long time. So you see, I'm not going to have any sun transits or any Uranus transits for that matter. So it does not fully affect me, just the house it will be in. But I'll be speaking about the houses after that for the 12 signs. You see, I'm going to have sun trine here on the 13th, 14th. So I almost don't feel it. But maybe, let's see. Maybe my husband will have some Uranus aspects, some Uranus transits, or some, yeah, you see, he's having on all those days from the 31st till the 7th, 6th, 8th, he's having a Uranus transit. Here it is, Uranus sextile sun. So for him, this full moon actually, despite of being stressful, yes, it will take him out of his normal routine, but it will introduce something quite positive to him. He would be able to use it for the better good in an easy way. And how he can use it specifically, he can click here and read what the meaning of Uranus sextile sun is. And he's also going to have not far away Sun aspect Venus, conjunct Venus, trine Uranus. But you're going to feel it the most if around those days, 31st till the 7th, 8th, you have, for example, the Sun or Uranus conjunct a planet or opposition or square a planet. Then it can be it will push you quite a bit out of your comfort zone, will turn everything around, and things might not be the same in your life after that. But this is how you can see if this full moon is affecting you directly. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing now, and we're gonna start talking about the 12 signs. Stop share. Okay. So, excitable. It's even talking about it, I get a bit uh, hyperventilating because I tap into the Uranus and Aquarius energy. And it is exciting because it is fresh, it's new. Aquarius is very futuristic sign, so it's bringing new outlandish ideas, new outlandish or very out there ideas, but sometimes to get us out of a rut, that's exactly what we need. And because it's a full moon, it's about something that you will realize or have like a eureka sudden realization. Uranus can bring you like sudden download of information, and Aquarius as well in certain area of your life that you've been doing something, like you can have like you snap out of one state of mind and get you into a different state of mind, so you can suddenly cut cords and end something because you see it from a totally different perspective. And you might have read about it before and like, yes, I understand it intellectually, but it didn't hit you right into the heart. And now with this with this full moon, it's not an eclipse, you can have like sudden switch in your mind about certain area in your life that allows you to break free. Let's start with Aries, for example. If you're Aries, rising especially, the sun or the moon in Aries, if you have, then the full moon activates your 11th house, social contacts. So you can suddenly find out something very surprising and shocking about a friend of yours, so they can do something unexpected, or you can suddenly have like an impulse to cut connection, so you can suddenly see your friends in a very different light, or even not friends, people on your social media, or colleagues or workmates. These are people in your social environment that you communicate with. Maybe you never even met them, maybe they are on a group that you're part of. So suddenly something there these such groups can become electrified, your attention can be focused there, you can be excited about some new ideas coming from there, but at the same time, because it is kind of disruptive, I think that you can have like a sudden desire to break away. Maybe some of you can delete their social account or just quit Facebook for a few days, or Instagram or whatever. Or some of you can have some of you can find out some information that is quite shocking, surprising as well, that changes your social environment. And because Taurus is in your second house, Aries, it can also be connected, and Taurus is making difficult aspect to the sun and moon. I want you to be careful with your finances. You can have like a sudden impulse spending, for example, or sudden impulse buying, or sudden expense that comes to you, especially might involve something connected with your goals, the 11th house, or something connected with your children, or something connected with the 5th house where the sun is, so connected to your creative projects, or something connected to having fun or holiday or some type of thing. And it might even spur you into some kind of a sudden holiday or party, or unexpectedly, but it will create some surprises in your normal routines, normal social activities, your normal goals, social economic goals, some surprises and unexpected developments with your finances and resources, and with your some surprises as well, with a disruption of routines with children, or if you have some plans for holidays or parties as well. It can also indicate exciting such developments, but they're kind of a bit more on the stressful level. It's so exciting, they're a bit too stressful. And sudden, it can even bring like sudden realizations connected to your love life, and sudden shocking finds out about surprising find outs about someone you love, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband or wife, because the sun is in the 5th house as well. And you can rebel. You can feel very rebellious about social causes. The full moon is in the 11th house of social causes. You can really want to revolutionize your and to do some tangible action there in regards to a social cause, or in regards to um, or you might rebel against your friends and such things that we talked about. If you're Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising, also check your personal transits to see if it directly affects any of your planets. Then it's going to be very big. But for Taurus, you're almost like the one acting like the agent provocateur. You're ready for changes, but this creates tension. And the changes that you're introducing, sudden changes and reversals, they create shifts in your social status, especially, and in your personal life. The sun is in your fourth house. So some of you might be like a sudden relocation that comes out, a sudden change of job. And it can come through a bit of a crisis. Like suddenly you're like, enough, I can't do that, this job, or this boss sucks. And you rebel against the boss, or you rebel against an authority figure, or you rebel against governments and institutions of some sort. And because the 10th house symbolizes all of those things. And or suddenly it can indicate some work project that you've been working on, because it's full moon. It means something that you've already been working on suddenly changes. So you have to be very adaptable and very fast react on those changes. And don't worry, Uranus is in your sign, so you're quite inventive for the next few years. You're quite inventive to react, even though your Taurus is a sign that changes so slowly, but once they change, they'll never go back. But so you can make some sudden change and cut connections with some authority figures, boss figures, of parental figures, even some members of your family. It can escalate tension, nervous tensions with members of family, or with work and career there. But also it can indicate some really fresh like realization in regards to your career, or some career project, and in regards to your status at home and personal life, that you decide to change direction, and it kind of relieves you and ends for you certain worldly responsibility, for example, and you kind of no longer feel you disconnect that worldly responsibility in some sort. All right. So if you're Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising, the full moon is activating your 9th house. Wow. Sudden bursts of truth and information that you can find out, quite disturbing even. The 9th house rules truth. And currently this full moon really makes you very passionate about figuring out what the truth is in certain area of life, or collectively, and to see from a higher perspective. Suddenly you're some of the people, Gemini, that you can have such a shift in your consciousness, because the 9th house is high understanding, how you view the world, how you interpret events around you, what meaning do you put to them. And this full moon gives like a rare opportunity to shift your consciousness suddenly. It's not gradual, about how you perceive something. You might read something, or a friend might tell you something. I don't know where it can come from, or it can be just within you, of your higher self, that you suddenly download information and you're like, I was blind and now I can see. It can feel disruptive because it can push you to change your, it basically affects your, not only your whole world view, but your plans for the future suddenly. How you view the whole reality, and also your daily routines and activities. The sun is also affected in the 3rd house. How you go about, you have your plan to go here, to do there, your, the check tasks that you do every day. Suddenly this kind of, for a few days, it gets out of, all your plans, maybe for travel as well. 3rd and 9th house rule travel. So if you're traveling, it might be surprising. You might be, I'm not saying don't fully travel. If you have to travel, you'll travel, but out of the blue, things will happen there. It's not going to go exactly according to expectations. Of course, you can find the silver lining in everything, in it again. But it's kind of, this disruptions are happening because of, Uranus is triggering this full moon in your 9th house from your 12th house, which is your subconscious. Again, it's connected to the invisible worlds, and almost like the old karma that we carry is the 12th house. And Uranus, it still will be in your 12th house for another 5 years, but it's really strongly activating to create some cord cutting with past subconscious patterns that are like vices, or that are disconnecting you from that is not disconnecting, that like stones, underwater stones that are tripping you. So these are subconscious patterns that are emerging into the surface, and suddenly you have such realizations that make you shift your consciousness. For example, in regards to, because we have to connect those three houses where the planets are activating. So your higher mind, you suddenly have a eureka moment. Aha, I realize, I see the higher perspective. It shifts your consciousness, might be shifting your consciousness in regards to some vices of yours, of some patterns that you've been repeating over and over. Maybe you've been carrying them subconsciously since past lifetimes, but you become like aware of them suddenly, and you're able to switch them. So some addictions might be broken, for example, after this full moon, around this full moon. Some other self sabotaging behaviors as well, and cutting cords with the past in some way because of realization. But tensions escalate, especially when it comes to, because third and ninth house rules your opinion and other people's opinions as well. It's another level. So there is tension there. Oh, you might be so emotional and sensitive, and putting out there your opinions, but you're getting opposed by other people's opinions as well. And this can create cutting of cords in relationships with someone, especially those third house people indicated here, and those ninth house people, like with teachers, with mentors, or third house, with friends, with relatives, with siblings, with neighbors, with workers, teammates, workmates. It can destabilize relationships with those, or something sudden can happen with those relationships in your everyday life. So not, third house rules your everyday familiar people in your daily environment, the people you meet when you go to work, when you go to the shop, your neighbors, your relatives, your siblings, your friends that you have coffee with. Ninth house is people far away from you. Maybe you never met them. Maybe they're on social media. Maybe they're foreigners that you work with, or people out of state. From a different social status, different social background than you, the familiars and the unfamiliars. And there's tension in relationships with such people because of differing opinions, something surprising happening, something that changes your direction. And because these are the houses, the third and nine, also of studying and education, some of you can have sudden realization or disruption of some sort to their studies, to some classes or courses that they're taking. It doesn't have to ruin their life. It can be just like, oh, they have to reschedule a few times, or they can't start this week, they have to start another week, or someone else teaches them. Or it can be just that some of you, especially if this full moon triggers personal planets, as I showed you how to see, it can have a sudden shift of consciousness to what they want to study. And they decide to pre-qualify and start and drop some line of study and learn suddenly some other very different skills, you know. So on many levels, it's affecting you. All right. If your Cancer Sun, Moon, or Rising, the full moon falls in your 8th house, Cancer, and of course triggers the second one and the 11th. So here we see that there can be a clash between values, your values and other people's values. And because of that, you can, you know, suddenly decide to cut certain cords with people, with friends, with people from your social environment or social media as well, because there is the tension between what I consider valuable and what others consider valuable. And this affects directly your social status or your social connections and interactions. Uranus in the 11th house. It's also, it's a bit of a power struggle energy. But also you can find sudden developments with money can happen, because this is the access, financial access, your resources, other people's resources. They can be push and pull. You can suddenly find out about something that's happening with your money through a bank or mutual fund, or your partner is doing something. Suddenly there's some expense that happens that you have to pay for something, you know. So be careful that finances are more stressful. And you suddenly might want to cut and to discard and to end with certain financial obligation that you have, with certain it's not necessarily also obligation, but certain, if you've been spending money on something, suddenly you can have like an awareness, I no longer need this, I want to get rid of those things. I want to get rid of, You know, the eighth house is other people's resources, things from that people have given you, throw them out, or you and your partner decide to basically shift and change somehow where your investments are, or there's a shift and a change in the finances of your partner, or some sudden surprises in regards to taxes and inheritances and insurances. So you just decide to, or your mutual possessions, to get rid of them, or to kind of, you know, make some change with them. This is another way it can play out. uh, and you kind of, you can rebel as well in that area of your life, which is the eighth house. You can rebel against some eighth house. The negative side of it is someone who has control over you, psychological, it might be psychological, emotional, intellectual control, abuse of some sort, because there is a dark side to the eighth house where one wants to control the other. If there is such a person in your life, Cancers, that is more, that's such relationship that is more manipulative, where there's playing of a game like a chess of some sort, that feels a bit more toxic, or that is very volatile, it can even break, it can even escalate the tension there and the power struggle to some extent. Then you can have like a sudden realization about, even though you're probably aware, yeah, this relationship is toxic, you know, you can have like a sudden realization that helps you break away from this, almost like an addictive habit to someone, addictive habit to someone who's not good for you. You know, sometimes these are codependent or sexually abusive relationships, or financially abusive. You know, it can play out in different ways. Depends if the eclipse is, sorry, the full moon, if the full moon is triggering you with good aspects, like I showed you how to check, actually you can, suddenly there can be some sudden unexpected gain of money even for you, that comes to you from another, from an unexpected source, or gain of support of some sort, or help, because the eighth house is other people's resources, emotional, psychological, financial, that can suddenly come to you and like, wow, you know. But if it's making hard aspects to other planets in your horoscope, this full moon, this can indicate be careful with your finances. There can sudden expenses can happen there, especially if connected to other people's resources, or as I said, it can create this power struggles that we talked about, and also sudden rebellion, and like, I'm done with this manipulative bullshit kind of thing. You kind of have a breakthrough in deep psychological, eighth house is very psychological, realization about certain behaviors. You almost like, wow, how didn't I see that before? That can break you out of some pattern. All right. Then if you're a Leo, sun, moon, or rising, the full moon is happening in your seventh house, putting focus on your relationships. So there can be a sudden change in your relationship status for some of you. Some person might suddenly leave your life. It's not necessarily husband or wife, but it is the house of husband or wife. Or it might be a partner, collaborator, someone that you, any person, you know, seventh house is other people. You can suddenly decide to cut cords with such people. Or even if you haven't seen someone in a while, you can have a sudden realization that allows you to break through some kind of a attachment and see the relationship in a very different way. And the full moon is about something completing its phase. It can't grow anymore. This is the most. So you can just say, okay, you're out of my life, and you no longer even feel emotional connection to them. It disconnects Uranus like that. And it can come from you or from another person, that they kind of disconnect to suddenly say, okay, I'm blocking you on Facebook or whatever. So it's expect some surprises there, you know. And especially if the full moon is making hard aspects to your horoscope, like I showed you how to check in the first part of the video, then it can really turn around certain relationships or contracts. So you can suddenly decide that you end with certain promise or agreement with someone. Seventh house is contracts, agreements. So you can have like a illumination. Ta-da! It's like, okay, the end of this contract, the end of this agreement. Or it can just be interrupted, not because you want it, but you know, because it's the end of it. But it happens suddenly, unexpectedly. And also you can expect, like, say you have certain plans with partners in relationship with your marriage partner. You can, something suddenly can happen in their life that kind of, they act out or they rebel themselves. So they like need more freedom or more space for a little bit. And it's good if you give them freedom of space for a little bit. Or you might be the one, because seventh house, it is other people, but it is your seventh house, how you approach others. You might feel like, oh, I'm suffocating. Give me some space about some person. It's just like, I need some space, you know, or give me some distance. It doesn't need to end the relationship, you know. It can just be like, okay, a little bit, step back. It can also indicate that you're rebelling against certain rules of your relationships, how things are, and you're just like, I don't want it to be anymore. I want to change it. And that's a great time to do that. Again, it doesn't mean a relationship will end. It can just mean, okay, let's do something crazy now. I don't want to be set in the same routine. Let's go wild for a little bit. And actually getting out of the routine is the perfect solution for this eclipse, not eclipse, full moon, for this full moon, because it's so Uranian. It needs to be, you need to do something out of the ordinary with your relationship. You need to plan something unexpected. And if you have some plans with your partner already, they can be like surprise. They can come out, you know, and even personal plans, because the sun is in your first house, guys. So you have some plans, even if they don't involve someone else. Well, Uranus squares the sun. Good luck making it happen like you expected. It might be a better, nicer surprise, but it's kind of a bit disruptive, whatever you've decided to do. And the nervous energy is very high for you guys. What I talked at the beginning, you definitely feel it. And there might be some surprises and tension that happens between you and partner, you and clients and other people, because of certain work projects, some new changes that are happening in your career or your social status, or some institution or a boss or authority figure that creates some tension here, that, or there's change happening here in the career, and it affects your relationships and you in some way as well, because Uranus is involved in the 10th house of social status. Okay, if you're Virgo, sun, moon, or rising, the full moon of rebellion is in your 6th house. You might rebel at work. You might rebel about some working conditions or with your workmates, or about some work project that feels ridiculous to you. You might decide to drop it or cut it off. Or you might, if the full moon is making good aspect in your horoscopes, like I showed you how to look, you can just suddenly have some project, work environment can change and need to be kind of, you know, because Uranus is expecting to innovate. It has some new things are being introduced as well there, or it's like suddenly a project that you're working on, it becomes unpredictable, it changes. You've had one plan for it, it changes somehow unexpectedly. Or your just daily routines, the 6th house is your daily routines. It's like, I wake up at this time, I do this, then I go to the office, or then I go to the shop, then I dress my kids, whatever it is. Well, it's not gonna be, it's just gonna be a lot of surprises there with your daily routines. You have to be flexible. If you're used to doing things always the same way, well, now there'll be some disruption there with your plans overall. This is 6th house, is how you plan and organize your day, your office, your home. You can just suddenly even decide like, I'm going to shift everything around, or you might not decide it yourself. It might be imposed on you from outside, from circumstances independent of yourself. And you have to very quickly adapt to the changing daily routines, you know, around. Um, and there is also a possibility that there is tension between you and enemies, or sorry, workmates. And because of discrepancies in belief system, because Uranus is making the square to the 6th house, but also, you know, the ninth house is belief system, where Uranus is opinions. So that can stress you, and that can even, because of what's happening, sudden realizations about the world and what's happening in the external world, which is the 9th house, the house of how you perceive reality. And suddenly your belief systems are changing, and that can create stress to your health or mental stress. The 6th and the 12th house are the houses of health, mental, psychological, emotional. So nervous tension can happen. And if you're wondering, why am I so stressed, why I'm so uneasy, it's possibly because of your world beliefs are changing. You find out some shocking news or some information. The 9th house, it is connected about, you know, sudden information, that makes you look from a higher point of view, but that can destabilize your daily routines and activities, and it can, it can even nervous system. Be careful there. It can highlight certain nervous condition. I would highly recommend for you Virgos magnesium, what I recommended, because what comes down this Uranian energy and grounding yourself. And so sudden surprises at work, disruptions, change, and some of you, on the highest level, what it can mean is that you can suddenly decide to cut cords and to get rid of, and to suddenly change and shift your consciousness. You don't decide it, it happens in regards to some health issue, in regards to some victimized state. The sixth house also rules, someone saying, well, my family's been diabetics, I'm also diabetic, I'll always be like that. And, you kind of you accept it and you stay in a victim state, but suddenly you can have some realization, you can read something, you can find out some information, and you're like, enough is enough. It doesn't have to be like that. I can reverse that. I can, and it's going to be quite radical. It's going to be quite revolutionary. It's not going to follow traditional medicine. It's going to have to do with the mind, because Aquarius is the mind, and changing something in your perspective in your mind. And this can shift the whole, it can be the start of shifting a whole health issue that you've been having for a while, and completing it and ending it, or a whole victimhood state of mind. Say, oh, poor us, I was born in a poor family, we never get a chance, or I come from a different country, an immigrant, I never get a chance. This is the victimhood state of the sixth house. You can have like a breakthrough there suddenly. You can, some new beliefs or some new realization that breaks you out and allows you to cut cords with this kind of almost family karmic victimhood state of circumstances. So that's the highest manifestation which I wish for you. Plus the 6th and the 12th houses are connected to addictions. The 12th house is self-sabotaging vices that we need to escape reality with. 6th house is connected to basically self-medicating when you're not feeling well, you're nervous, whatever. Most addictions are because people are not feeling well and they self-medicate. Well, you can have a sudden like awakening to break an old pattern. Uranus comes there because your belief systems are changing. Your higher mind suddenly gives you a download that allows you to break a pattern of certain addictive behavior, or certain unhealthy behavior, and certain self-medication. 6th, 12th house, or even subconscious patterns of vices. And so you can see them clearly now and say, okay, it's like there is a saying, Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem from the same state of consciousness that it was created in. And this is like a little gate and opening for some of you Virgos. Unfortunately, not everyone will feel it fully, but I hope for a big part of you that there can be this opening where you can change that state of consciousness, so a problem will disappear. 6th house is our problems, the things that yoke us. It's like it's a karmic house as well, to death as well. So you can also mean breaking your way from some responsibility and suddenly ending some duty and responsibility and saying enough. The universe says enough, you've had enough of this duty or responsibility, or you say. Plus the 6th house is enemies, so it can escalate, some fight with an enemy, some really imbalanced situation. I say 6th house is like, it can be toxic situation with a person, or it can be a situation connected to imbalance. One gives more than receives, one takes more, one is more in a victim state or servant state to the other. So it can create a disconnection ending there of such a relationship. Plus 6th house is your employees. So if you're a manager of someone, you can have tension there. It can escalate someone. You can fire someone, or you can, or if you're an employee, your situation might be volatile. You might be like, I'm done with that. I want to get out of here. Things are changing. I have to adapt quickly. All right. Libra. If you're Libra, sun, moon, or rising, the full moon is happening in your 5th house. This is your, and the 11th and the 8th. So they're all activated. These are, the 5th house is connected to love first. Some of you might have sudden, okay, let's start with the negative. Some of you can have, you can rebel against a certain situation in a love relationship. You can be like, okay, enough, I've had enough with a loved one, or a loved one can feel more rebellious. So you can just need a bit more space in a love relationship. Or there can be a lot of focus on a love relationship and something unexpected. It might be a conversation or whatever that happens that needs to change the dynamics of this romantic relationship. And if the relationship is not stable, for some of you, it might be even the end of a certain romantic relationship with a love person, because Uranus can cut ties very quickly. And Uranus is working in for 3-4 more years, or 5, is working on your traumas there from your 8th house. It's really kind of trying to bring them to the surface and to electrocute them, remove them, so to speak. And certain tensions can arise between you and a loved one, or your children. The 5th house rules children as well. Difference of opinions, you know, and especially triggered by traumas that are coming to the surface. Maybe they're not so, you know, they don't do something big, but you just overreact, you know, because of certain traumas and buttons in the subconscious that are being triggered through this Uranus in the 8th house. But it can escalate the relationships between you and children. Children can feel like one of your child can feel more rebellious, and in extreme cases, maybe some accident or unexpected development happening there. I don't wish it on anyone. This is my husband ascendant, so I'm like, oh, I don't like making such predictions, but I have to say what from the worst possible to the best possible. It can mean that something is shifting in your romantic relationship, something that, especially because Uranus also wants to these are sexual houses, the 5th and the 8th, the 5th and the 8th. So Uranus there wants to revolutionize your sex life. It wants maybe to be more experimentative and to try new things. And so does 5th house is love life as well. So you might do something crazy with your partner. I don't know, threesome or or just some public sex. This can be a fun way it's released. So actually, I would advise you, if you want to utilize this energy and for it not to come from outside, just do something that is morally acceptable, that doesn't hurt your partner or yourself, that you've agreed on, you know, because with Uranus, there can be surprises, but that is out there, that breaks you out of your routine in your love life. Maybe suddenly decide to go somewhere on a holiday, or suddenly decide to do something you've never done before. And, but also there can be tensions between your social life, because the sun is also affected. You might suddenly decide to cut cords with people in your social environment. My husband deleted his Facebook. I mean, from his phone in the last 2-3 days, because he says, I've had that. Like, I'm just entering fights with friends all the time. The tension is escalating because our beliefs are a bit more different than the mainstream. And he just deleted it. And that can be like suddenly taking a break from social media. 11th house is socially connected. So he was like, I'm cutting the cord, or else I'll never speak to those friends. I don't want to lose them. You know, so it's already playing out in his horoscope. And I also been pushing him to do something sudden. I'm not planning it. It will come suddenly when the 3rd comes. It can also be, but of course it can, if it affects your horoscope with difficult aspects, like I showed you how to check, it can mean breaking the cord with some friendship, people in a social environment, even fighting about resource or about values and other people's resources with others. So sudden changes in finances can create some tension between loved ones and you and loved ones, the moon in the 5th house. Or there can be some expenses for children, or your partner might spend suddenly on certain things as well. That's another possibility. But the 5th house is also creative projects. For creativity, I think this is quite positive, because Uranus is very planet that can bring you sudden downloads of information from a higher source. So you can suddenly get like an idea, whoa, a creative idea, or how to make a creative idea, or something that you very, and not only creative idea, but also social, economic, financial goal. If you have some goal or dream that you're working on, or some creative hobby that you're working on, something that's your passion, or some social economic one, they can be some sudden changes there in regards to how to do it, some new ideas that come to you. But be careful with finances overall, because these planets all aspect your financial house. They can be sudden expenses, or if you're playing on the stock market, or fifth house is speculation. You might be tempted to do some big uh, speculative buy or sell right now, unless this full moon is making good aspects to your horoscope. Like I showed you in my chart, my husband, it's making good aspect. It's not a good idea because it can destabilize your finances. So there can be unexpected surprises with financial situation of some sort, especially with, eight houses, stock markets as well. So the eighth, the fifth, and the 11th are connected to stock markets. All of them, just different aspects of stock markets, like the eighth is mutual bonds, the fifth is speculative investments and for new startups. The 11th is general markets, how they go, the trends. So there is some tension. Things can suddenly shift. There can be some surprises, for good or bad, depending of the aspects. It's a bit more volatile. So I advise you not to, unless this full moon is making just good aspects in your horoscope, don't take risks, because they can really kind of turn your financial situation. And fifth house, also full moon, can give you closure about something. You can find some, or another way, you can find some sudden surprising information about a loved one or about a friend, because the fifth and the 11th house are connected, or about this loved one, that you can find sudden information. It can, I forgot what I was going to say totally. I don't know. But it can also bring some exciting, fun activity, like a sudden holiday, sudden fun going out unexpectedly. That is quite unpredictable. That is quite. But if you have plans with friends, or with loved one, they're not going to go according to plan. It will turn out something very different than you expected around those days. And also, closure. Speaking about full moons are about endings and completing. So some of you, for example, you've broken up with someone 3-4 years ago, but you still dream of them and you haven't had closure. This can give you sudden cutting of the cords. This Uranus square in the fifth house with friends or loved ones, ex-boyfriends, girlfriends. So you can have like closure somehow, or sudden realization, and you can cut the cords and suddenly stop missing them. That's one positive way it can play out, because Uranus releases the trauma from the eighth house. This kind of, I'm stuck in the pain, I cannot live through it. I'm not laughing at that, because I've been for years in such situations, but that's another way it can play out. I will tell you, if we're still married in a few weeks with my husband. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, if you're a Scorpio, the full moon is happening in your fourth house, but it's activating also your 10th house. Sudden changes can happen in your family, like sudden relocation, sudden change with a family member, some surprises. Or if you have plans with your family, we're going to go here, we're going to do that. Your plans, be prepared to be very spontaneous, and because it might even play out better than you expected, but there's surprises, especially if the eclipse, the full moon, is making hard aspects to some other planets in your horoscope. Sudden things at your home, with matters of property, of real estate, or with family matters, they come a bit as a shock. Your daily routines at home and with family get disturbed in some way. And the good thing is something exciting, something that you didn't expect, but that is good. And that comes in regards to those areas. But also it can mean cutting cords with certain family members, and rebelling against family. Aquarius is so rebellious, rebelling against what is the routines at home and the rules at home, or rebelling against a parent even. That's my son's ascendant. No wonder he's been acting like a Tasmanian devil. he's been rebelling against everything. His Scorpio moon and rising. And in the last few days with the buildup of this full moon, it's like total, hell monkey. And also, yes, so we talked places of living, sudden changes can happen, but also the 10th house is affected. It can be sudden shift in something to do with your career, or some work project that you're working on, or it can feel even some tension between you and an authority figure, like a boss or an institution of some sort, or a parental figure. The nervous tension escalates. And of course, your relationships is affected. Scorpio with Taurus, Uranus making the square from the 7th house of relationships. So it can be a bit of a power struggle between the needs of your family that needs to be met, between what your career demands from you, and then what your partner demands from you. And if you don't have a partner, it can indicate, for some of you even can help with sudden cutting of cords with partnerships, because full moon is always about relationships, and Uranus is the planet that cuts cord, is in your 7th house of relationships. So suddenly you can, like, bam, I don't need you. But you are rebelling, you are acting out, especially emotionally, especially against your upbringing and traditions. And maybe that's exactly what is needed. You need like a break from the routine of daily life, at family, at home, how things are. If you have some family get-togethers, they'll be electrifying, exciting. Some unexpected things might come up as well. But it will have excitement as well. There will be electricity in the air. And if you're Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this full moon is happening in your 3rd house. So you can rebel against some friends of yours, or decide to cut cords with. It's a social house, relatives, siblings, neighbors, teammates, workmates. They can be rebellion in the small group environment with people from your everyday life, familiar people. You can see that they're acting out, or that they need space from you. Like someone can say, pause you on Facebook or Instagram as a friend, or delete you, or you might feel like, I need space from them. I'm like, I need to. You react overly emotional, and you can even throw the baby out with the water, as they say, and burn some bridges in your daily relationships and stuff. Maybe it's necessary to do that. But there is also, because a lot of the tension comes between your opinion and other people's opinions. Your beliefs is resisting other people's beliefs here. So you're fighting. Maybe some sudden news comes. And because of this news, this creates tension, and power struggles start happening, and people saying words. And especially with the 3rd, 9th house, your communication, and Uranus involved, your communications, you go and blurt out stuff that you might regret later. You act too fast. So I advise you, if you can hold your horses a little bit, because you can alienate people. Or if you've decided it's time to really cut those people off, if you cut them now, you're probably never gonna get back with them in your life. It's gonna be like a clean cut. So you can, you're out. Plus, Uranus is in your 6th house, and it's triggering this houses of opinions and beliefs as well. So your beliefs and opinions and communications can also stress your relationships at work, or your relationships with your employees, if you have employees, or around your work environment. There can be tension there. Something new can be happening in your work, some new routines, or some new changes and shifts that are unexpected, which also change your daily routines. 3rd house, your plans, your daily trips, your even your social environment somehow. So be careful around all of those things. Also, you can have like a sudden piece of news that comes. The 3rd house is information, that you suddenly find out something that's kind of shocking or surprising. You read something, and it's kind of shifting even your belief systems, and it's making you see the world in a different light, or just some piece of information that comes that's kind of, whoa, this, how do I incorporate that? And how do I, and it's out there somehow. And it also is the house of the mental state of happiness, the third house, the ninth house, the sixth house as well. So you might feel the nervous tension especially stronger than others. And it might just play out as excitability. Third house wants to have adventure, to explore around, to go around. With this full moon, you want to rebel, to be free, to move more. Third house is, I can just move, go on around and move. And Aquarius there, I want to rebel, I want to be free to move. You know, I want to walk around. You can fight with people, for example, for masks, wearing masks or not wearing masks. And you can, because this is the third house, your opinion, your people in your everyday environment, the people you meet at shops or whatever, you know, your belief system versus theirs. So something like that, expect, but it creates nervous tension in you, whether in social media or in your everyday environment. You might be fighting around health issues. Uranus in the sixth house. Sixth house is what you believe is it's kind of what hygiene you believe is right, or what you believe about health. Um, but just on a more personal level, be prepared that there will be surprises if you have any trips, because third and ninth house rules trips, long or short trips. They can go unexpectedly. They can be things that you have to very quickly adapt to. You plan it one way, it plays out another way. Also, third house is, as I told you, and ninth house, communication with others. You know, tensions escalate, the nervous energy. Third house rules the lungs and the nervous energy and the nervous system as well. So you might feel a bit more. Eh. But also, it's exciting. As I said, you can be socially quite active. You can some very revolutionary ideas are in the air, some very excitable new ideas that are being discussed. Yes, they can create tensions, but if the full moon makes good aspects to your horoscope, it actually can just bring you new ideas. It can stimulate your mind. It can stimulate your relationships and connections in a positive way. And third house is business. So they can be some on writing and speaking. So they can be a big focus on that. And maybe you can write or say or speak or make a presentation of some sort that escalates tensions and that creates a lot of social excitement, let's say. Plus and minus, both are possible. Um, but on a positive level, it can even indicate very successful uh, campaign for business, marketing, project launch. Even though it's Uranus related, there is a tension from Uranus. It can involve high technology, for example. It can go viral, or it can the positive side of Uranus. So it can just it can be a culmination that you end such business project of some sort and complete it, um, and it disrupts your a little bit kind of your plans and goals. It can go more surprising than you expected in some way as well. All right, if you are Capricorn, the full moon is happening in your second house and your eighth house and the fifth one. These are financial houses. There is focus on your finances, Capricorns. And I would advise you to be cautious with money, not to take too many big risks, because already there is a possibility that sudden expenses can come to you from others, or for children, or for pleasures, or even sudden holiday that appears for you out of the blue. Uranus squares the second house. Fifth house is to have fun. Uranus is something suddenly. You decide to have fun suddenly. You go to a casino and you spend whatever, you know, or you suddenly say, okay, I need a few days away, and that can put some strain on your finances. But it's okay if you spend it on something you like. What better than that? Or some expenses for children can come up, or expenses for a loved one, a lover, or romance, or some creative project, for example, or business project even, you know, because the fifth house is anything that you are creating. But there can be some tensions escalating between your finances and other people's finances, between you and clients, or you and your partner in some way. Some changes that are happening there. So be on the alert, or the need to make certain changes there as well. The need to creatively adjust your finances and money because some shift is happening. You also might rebel against, this is the second house is about traditions. You might rebel a little bit about the family as well. It is connected to the family, about the traditional expectations. Um, you can even take some high risk when it comes to finances in some way. But Uranus in the fifth house is also involved. As I said, it can put some tension on your love life and values. These are all houses of values. The second gate, your values versus other people's values, and this creates tension. What you consider worthy and what another person considers worthy, and you can clash heads, and this can escalate. But on another level, on the highest level, is it can, for example, this full moon can uh, allow you to break away from certain financial responsibility, free you from a certain financial responsibility as well, because the moon with square Uranus wants to cut cords, the full moon. It can also indicate tensions between you and lovers or boyfriend, girlfriends, husbands, wives, because the fifth house is definitely connected to romantic life. Because of, again, values or finances of some sort, or different, what you consider valuable, what they consider valuable. It's a possibility as well. Or it can just be some excitable electric energy of you getting some new ideas with Uranus in this fifth house. That might even affect your finances, but this can take you out of a comfort zone. You might have to take, some idea can come, creative idea, original idea can come for you, which is Uranus in the fifth house, which can shift your finances to the future. And what do I say? It's maybe that's exactly what's needed, All right. If you're Aquarius, the full moon is happening in your sign. Watch the whole intro to this video because it's most relevant to you. Everything that I said at the beginning matters for you, about the nervous system, about the circulation, the heart, about you, but you're the main rebel, guys. You're like, you might want to become socially active about something. It's like the spotlight is on you. The full moon shines on you. And it's, for some reason, you take a central role. Oh, that's me. There you go. And you might be willing to speak out things that can be disturbing to others, that can shock others, that can even disturb your peace of mind, because Uranus is squaring from the fourth house of peace and home. Or some changes might be happening in your home, which directly influence your goals and plans and your relationship. Suddenly, out of the blue, something with family, with a family member, with a place of living, or maybe you have some plans with family and you do something unexpected, surprising with family, but it can create tensions with family, out of the blue. You have one plan but something else happens, but shift there in family, property, home, place of living. Plus you might be completing something because the full moon is happening in your first house. It might be a sign for you that you're completing some project you started 6 to 18 months ago, when there was a new moon, maybe a year and a half or 6 months ago, in your first house in Aquarius. Something is culminating, is bubbling to the surface. You're expecting it for it to come to have certain outcome, but you have to suddenly readjust, and you have to suddenly change something there. Or you're having some plan, you're working personally involved with some plan, but because maybe you're doing it with another person, something will change. So you have to adapt there. Something won't be exactly as you expected. And as I said, something suddenly can happen in regards to your partnership as well, depending, if it's good or bad, if the full moon is making good aspects in your horoscope, and I showed you how to check it, or it's making more stressful aspects. Like some of you might even be able to cut cords with someone from the past that they're connected to and no longer feel attached to them. And the seventh house is not only marriage partners, it's business partners. So they can be sudden surprise that comes to you from a business partner, or from someone you collaborate with, or from clients. You might cut cords with certain clients. Some people might, you have audience for example, can be the seventh house. Your public, they can say, oh, I'm done with you, or you can say, I'm done with you, and you delete them from your account, you know. So such things can escalate, definitely. If it doesn't aspect directly any planets in your horoscope, you'll probably feel it like you feel electrified, excited, you feel like full of new ideas, sudden inspirations and downloads. So things are shifting. You want to change something in regards to your personal life, because the first house is you. If it's your sun in Aquarius, it's usually with your career or important men in your life that you can suddenly change something, have a closure, something culminates, you see the results of it, but it's surprising. It's not like you expected. If it's your moon there in Aquarius, it's your personal life, home, family, place of living, that something culminates, or with women in your life. You can have closure or cut cords, or you resolve something. If it's your ascendant, it's your whole life, and it's your physical body as well. It's your appearance. The sun, moon, ascendant as well, but the ascendant in particular, something in regards to your health, that you can say, you can have sudden realization and you say, I'm done with it. And you break through some family karma, because Uranus cuts cords with the family karma, because sometimes some health issues or some behaviors we're tied to them because of family karma, because your parents did it like that, and it's a pattern. And Uranus now activating this full moon in your first house, you can have like a sudden realization and cutting of a cord connected to some family karma, some family, and that liberates you, that gives you the freedom. The first house is to have freedom and be liberated, to start some transmutation on the psychological level there. But sudden endings that you can do. All right. And you come up as quite revolutionary, as quite electrifying, as quite excitable. Foot in the mouth syndrome maybe as well, just go and blurt out whatever you want. And you might disturb others because of that. All right. And last but not least, Pisces, sun, moon, rising. This full moon is in your 12th house. Well, it is fantastic for intuition. Oh my God, Uranus, that is activating the full moon, is the planet of telepathy, of suddenly downloading information. And the 12th house is the invisible world, your dream world as well, your spirit guides. You can have like sudden downloads of information from spirit guides, or sudden realization in regards to self-sabotaging behaviors, and in regards to bad habits and vices that you can suddenly cut cord with as well, you know. And that's the 12th house. Any habits, any any vices, as they call them, like drinking, smoking, whatever, watching porn, or even being addicted to anything that you're addicted, that allows you to escape reality. Like even social media can be addictive. For some of you can be like, I'm cutting cords suddenly. I've had enough of that. Maybe because you have a fight with someone. Maybe because you read something. Uranus in your 3rd house. You read something, you learn something, you learn some new tool, and you're able to cut cord and end some bad habit. And also, even the sun in the 6th house, it's health. You have some sudden realization that allows you to shift something in your health, in your health habits as well. So that's interesting, you know. But there will be, and you can have like some very telling, illuminating dreams. In your dreams, you receive some answers, or you download whole pieces of information, missing information. Uranus in the 3rd house is information, and squaring the 12th house of the invisible, your spirit guides might just give you some information that you're missing. So that kind of shocks you, that takes you out of a comfort zone as well. And that can, even what's happening can kind of destabilize your routines, daily routines. The sun in the 6th house, your plans for work. You have certain plans. I'm going to do this and this and this on the 3rd or the 4th, or even now already starting to happen. But it all flies in the air, and you have to quickly adjust to the changing circumstances in some way. It can even, the 12th house is definitely house of past karma, and this full moon really bubbles to the surface and makes it very clear to you, almost like intellectually. You understand it with your mind, which is Aquarius, in a very clear way, why something is as it is, or some pattern that is karmic, self-sabotaging of or some karmic pattern that you've been repeating over and over, and you become quite clear about it suddenly. And you're like, okay, I'm done with it, out. Or it might be even very revolutionizing when it comes to um, if you're working with a psychologist or an astrologer or some healer of some sort. This is the 12th house. You can have sudden realization, a counselor of some sort that is like, wow, connected to past lifetimes or early life memories that you don't remember, that are suddenly brought to the surface and bring you the missing pieces of information. But somehow your daily routines as well, the sun in the 6th house, are disrupted, are surprised. Maybe something with your work suddenly happens as well in your work environment. And also be careful, because there might be tensions between you and your workmates. 6th house is workmates, or people that you work with. Uranus squaring the sun. Uranus is in the 3rd house because of opinions, because of changing routines of some sort. You know, the escalations can uh, uh, tensions can escalate, and nervous energy. Definitely the 12th and the 6th house, they're connected to mental and physical health, and Uranus in the 3rd is the mind. So you more than others can have nervous mental energy around you, kind of sudden feverish conditions and stuff like that as well. So again, grounding, calming yourself so you don't feel too spaced out can be highly recommended for you. And actually, I would say even a bit more rest. With this full moon, especially around the days of the full moon, it's in your 12th house of rest. You need some time alone to process, to disconnect from the chatter, because your mind is so busy with Uranus in the 3rd house. It's brilliant. Your mind is so brilliant, and it will stay for a few years. You know, you're thinking so differently, but maybe there's too much mental chatter and it's stressing you physically as well, with the sun in the 6th house, maybe mental, physical health. And kind of escaping it all in this 12th house, escape, dream, relax a little bit, go on a holiday if you can. But if you have any trips to do, this is also the axis of trips, the 3rd and the 9th, the 12th to faraway places, might be a bit unexpected. You might take like a unexpected short trip, for example, with Uranus in the 3rd house. And it will not go according to plan, but maybe that's exactly what you need to get you out of the everyday life. You need to disrupt this routine. Do it consciously so it doesn't happen unconsciously and you're like, oh no, my plans are ruined. So you disrupt your own daily routine on your own. And so, yeah, also be careful that you might have to, you might rebel, you know, Aquarius, you might rebel against opinions. You can have rebellious opinions. You can speak out things, you know, with Uranus in the 3rd house, very um, before you think. Um, but on another level, you can have, as I said, sudden downloads of information, sudden realizations that are illuminating, that help you see things from a different perspective, because these are houses of the mind and consciousness, the 12, the 6, the 3rd, and of course the one above, the 9th. So sudden shift in your mentality is happening on a deeper level. So thank you so much, all of you. Do check out my book. I forgot to say, my book is out on astrology aspects. I'm very excited about it. And thank you so much. Yeah, I think we've had like 500 or 600 copies sold out, no returns. I think people really like it. So yes, natal aspects in the horoscope, what it means. Very to the point, no fooling around. What does it mean for you? How to overcome them, remedies, advices, and so on. Thank you.